Hi, I'm Talia Dardis, and I'm the Science Scholars teacher. And thank you for making time to watch this and get some more information about our awesome program. I'm super excited to share any information that you want about it because it is such a special program for the students and for me that I get to teach it. It's very exciting. I have my contact info on the screen, and I'll share this slideshow so you can have my email address for later. But I think the biggest question that parents and students have is what will they gain from this course? Because it's not a traditional content-based class. And it's 3 years working towards a really big goal. And so I thought I'd break it down year by year to kind of give you an idea of what students should have accomplished in the class. So the first year, they're basically trying to discover what they want to study. They're going to find a mentor in that field, and they're going to design their experiment. So it's a super important year, and it's probably the hardest because the hardest part of the whole class, I think, is finding a mentor that's doing what they want to do. But it is also a lot of fun, and we're all in it together. So I feel like people feel like they have the support and they have a chance to vent if things are going crazy while they're trying to get a mentor. So it's a challenging process, but it's also kind of unique and fun. In the second year, students are focused on writing up their summer research, and they are editing their papers. They're still diving into scholarly articles and trying to fit them into their writing. They're performing statistical analysis, sometimes with their mentor, sometimes without. And after they get that section done, we're really focused on public speaking and presentation skills. Finally, in the third year, I like to think of it as kind of our seeking perfection year, where they're taking all the foundational skills that they learned 10th and 11th grade and really creating a deep project and still going to all the competitions and also kind of networking, getting their work sometimes published and making those connections that they'll carry on maybe throughout their college career and beyond. So some common concerns, like I mentioned before, that might scare people about the class, but they really shouldn't. Finding a mentor is hard. It's not fun getting rejected, but I kind of think that even that is a teachable moment because students learn that the world doesn't revolve around them and that it takes tenacity and self-advocacy to get what you want. And not everything's going to be easy. And it also takes quite a bit of creative thinking, figuring out how they can network, how they can turn a no into a yes, and just the random web of people that they can reach out to try to find somebody. So it's a super valuable part of the class, even if it is maybe the oddest part of the class. Also, some common concerns that parents might have is, where is the student accountability? How do we know that my child is learning something from their time spent in this class? There's constant check-ins. Anytime there's a problem that comes up, we problem solve it together. So I feel like this class is probably the closest to real life prep that a student can take in high school. There's also traditional rubrics. So all the grades, it's very transparent how they're earning their points and what they should be working towards. And also there are concrete deliverables. They do create a research paper, they create their presentations. So there are very valuable artifacts that we can turn to make sure that they're gaining something from the course in their time. I just wanted to include a link for the rubrics that you can check out later. And another big part of our program is our optional but fun weekend activities. So we've gone out in the field, done some fish DNA work. We went to Untermeyer Gardens and handed out hot chocolate. We're always trying to think of fun ways to get kids out and together so that it feels like a team, because I think at the end of the day, like I like to think of it more as a team than a class. And this is a really important part of it. So on that note, I want to introduce my team members and some of the great students that I have with me. So Rania, would you like to speak a little bit more about finding a mentor and finding a topic that you loved in the class?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rania. Hi, I'm a sophomore, and yeah, I mean, I would love to share my experience in Science Scholar so far. I mean, the full school year hasn't even passed, but it feels like I've really learned a lot so far. I mean, I really recommend Science Scholars since like there are so many different areas and topics you can kind of explore. I mean, like going into Science Scholars in the beginning of the year, like I didn't have like much of an idea as to what my specific interests were, but like that's completely fine. And like I'm sure many of my peers also felt that way. But the thing is, Science Scholars kind of allows you to research more into different topics. And from there, you can kind of identify what your interests are and what interests kind of you might want to like build upon, if that makes sense. And so, that's a really great opportunity. And to learn more about specific topics, sophomores start to read scientific literature, which is honestly like one of my like favorite parts about Science Scholars, because it's just really enjoyable to learn more about like what I'm personally interested in. And we also get really like amazing guidance from Miss Stardust and also a lot of practice with reading scientific literature. So over time, like it becomes easier to understand things that might seem complicated at first. And like in terms of finding a mentor, like I certainly understand that it's difficult. Like, I've reached out to some labs who kind of couldn't really accept high schoolers because of COVID. But what I would say is that there's like a lot of opportunities still. Like COVID's not like the end of the world in terms of finding a mentor. Because like I if I hadn't taken Science Scholars, I wouldn't have even reached out to scientists in the first place and professionals. And so Science Scholars really helped me take the initiative and reach out to them. And what's really unique about like contacting different professionals is that like you have this way, as Miss Dardis mentioned, to kind of connect with professionals and kind of like network, if that makes sense. And through that, I think it is really possible to get a mentor. I actually think most of the sophomores right now have mentors. And some of the mentors are really helpful and they help other students find mentors. And so we're all like this team. And so, it's not as daunting as people think it is. And yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of had like some online Zoom meetings with some like professionals and like whom I contacted as potential mentors. And I kind of had the chance to like talk about myself and like my own interests. And I also learned a lot about like what they do. And it's just like a really insightful experience. And so yeah, and I guess like to end it, like Miss Stardust also like has a lot of excellent resources. There's so many different opportunities that like you can kind of seize, if that makes sense. Miss Stardust has like a lot of different types of internships that you can do. And yeah, so.
And you're being modest because you ended up with like two mentors.
Yeah.
So.
They're both really amazing. So yeah.
But thank you. Miriam, do you want to speak about taking your research and making a paper? Maybe that process or what you've learned from that?
Sure. Okay. So my research and turning it into a paper. So a little bit about how my process went. I was a little bit different from how most people did. And if you start off next year as a sophomore, then you probably won't have this experience in your junior year because ideally you're supposed to have all your research done, wrapped up in the summer between sophomore and junior. But it honestly depends on what research you actually end up doing. So my topic was about quantum computing, and I did a research project that carried over until December. So I was like finishing my research as I was writing the paper, although this would be a little bit stressful. So what you do is you do a research project with your mentor and you break it down into steps and you include this in a research paper. And you're not writing this completely on your own. You do at this point have a mentor, and this mentor is going to be really helpful in writing your paper. A lot of people get their mentors to proofread their paper. So it's kind of scary because what you're doing is writing like an academic paper. And it's something that like a lot of the times, like you've never really done anything like this before, but it's not as scary as you think because you are really supported by Miss Dardis, by the people around you, because we all have like a really active role in making each other's papers as good as it can be. And this is something I really like about Scholars because we really are a team in that sense. So even the things that are really intimidating or you don't think that you're going to do a good job on, all the resources are really there. Even if you're like me and you like had to wait until like the very last second, you will always have like the support system to help you like on every step of the way. And that's just really important. That's a really important part of Scholars, not even if you continue to do scientific research. And this will just be the first in a long line of many papers, but just having that support in all of your endeavors is very important. So yeah.
Thank you. So Rajan, do you want to speak to taking your paper and making it into presentations a little bit? Because you
Okay, I'll talk about that a little bit. I'm still working on that process, still fixing up my presentations, but it is interesting. It's very good to, I guess, figure out how to like market things, how to like sell your idea, because in these presentations, it's less about like how good your research is, but obviously that's very important. It's more about how can you sell your research? How can you make it seem interesting? And I think those kind of skills, I guess, of figuring out how to market something, figuring out how to make something seem interesting, how to get it simply, because my presentation, I have a lot of information and I need to compress that down into like small bits of information that people can understand and that people can digest quickly, since there's time constraints on these presentations. So learning how to do that, how to simplify your ideas, and also how to get across a lot of information quickly while making that information seem interesting, I think is a really important skill and is really interesting to do, even if it's kind of difficult. But you do have a lot of support when doing it. You'll have support from Ms. Dardis. You can ask your peers to help you with making the presentations. And there's a lot of like mock judging with volunteer teachers that can help you perfect your presentation and make it better. So it's a really good experience and you'll have a lot of support along the way. So it shouldn't be intimidating either.
I think your project is interesting and it's, don't sell yourself short. Thank you. Ronik, do you want to speak to maybe bringing outside interest into Science Scholars? Because like your project's so unique and interesting, and maybe just let people know that it's not always the medical stuff. It's really what people are passionate about.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, I feel like there's some sort of a sentiment that science research is revolving around a few ideas, whether it be medicine, behavioral sciences. When someone says science research, you might think of articles that you've read on like Science Direct or CNN or literally anything. And a lot of the times you're going to see coronavirus, you're going to see a lot of medical stuff. And the thing is that Science Scholars is pretty much all encompassing. If you have an idea that you would like to pursue, there's a huge chance that Science Scholars will help you pursue that idea. I personally was interested in economics and the way like stock markets function, patterns we see there, trends we see, ways to prevent recessions. And honestly, when I first came into Scholars, I did not think that it would be possible to get any sort of mentorship in this field or even like compete at competitions, anything along those lines. But Scholars has opened up this opportunity. Like I was able to cold email. I was able to talk to a lot of people. I talked to professors from Harvard, I think, and NYU. Like those opportunities always don't like lead to more paths, but there was one really good one that did, and that was with the Federal Reserve. And Mr. Hosier, actually, you helped me through that process. It was like there was so much support along the way to getting something so unique done. And in Science Scholars, I'm able to pursue my interest, and eventually I develop into my passion. And it's something I'm just want to pursue further.
Yeah, thank you. I think it really is a class where it's on you, which can be scary, but it can be so liberating. And like I said, it's such a special, we talk about college prep. I feel like this is grad school prep, because in college, I didn't have to read academic articles that much. In grad school, I did. So it's like they're skipping that whole thing. And it's awesome to be part of. And I hope if this sparks your interest and that you want to be part of this, that you enroll, and I'll see you next year then, if you choose. Thank you.
Do you want to do you want me to read the questions, Mr. Ardis? And then
yeah.
And
Yes,
Ms. Joseph,
yes.
can I just remind everyone that we shared a email last night. In that email, you would find the link to access this conversation.
Mm.
And there's a Google form link where if you want to submit questions, you can. And would love to answer any questions about the program.
I see. Okay, I see the questions. These are great questions. Time commitment for the 10th grader happens the outside of school time commitment is over the summer with about a 2.5 week commitment to either working in a lab with their mentor or virtually doing data analysis. But think of about 2.5 weeks over the summer as a full-time job where you will be collecting your data, because we really need the class to be structured so that when kids come back in September, they have their data to give them enough cushion to write their paper. That's kind of that is one of the, in a lot of the class, there's a lot of uniqueness and working with everybody, but that is one of the kind of rules that we just have to follow so that people can make the best product that they can. So that is, besides just being in class and participating as a 10th grader, that's really the only extra thing, is that summer commitment. Again, the time commitment is, so we have our normal class period. Inside that class period, depending on where the student is, they will either be reading an academic article, and we spend the beginning of 10th grade scaffolding and learning reading literacy skills to help them through that. If they are in 11th grade, they will have their data and they're writing their paper, peer reviewing papers. Once the papers are done, making their presentations, running through their presentations to friends or in front of the class or just me. So there's always a task they have to be working on, and there's a menu that's up in the class, but it generally is either reading an article, writing their paper, or making a presentation. So the goal in everything is always the research. The percentage of students who continue and complete into the, I'm thinking that maybe there might be 1 or 2 students every year that maybe decide to leave the class, but like Rania mentioned, most of the 10th graders have a mentor. I can't anticipating anybody leaving their mentor relationship to not get their research done over the summer. So I don't think the dropout should be very high. I'm just going to refresh to make sure I'm not missing any questions, but I think that was it. Let me just double check. Nope, I think that was it for the questions, but if any other questions come up, please email me and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer them. And thank you again for your interest in our awesome little program.